I guess I come from Africa. At least that's what people say. Life does. And I said yes to go to this Muslim country in the middle of the Sahara Desert to just go and experience it. Little did I know that God had something in store for me. The moment the plane touched down, the sights, the smells, the sounds were very familiar to me on a very deep level. And tears just came to my eyes. And for the week that I was there, I could not stop crying.
Welcome to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. If you are new to this program, please check out americashealthiestcity.com to learn about our 10-year community partnership to make Richmond, the entire region, the healthiest in America by 2033. This partnership demands that we all work together toward a common goal to achieve it, and we're looking for folks out there in the community who represent businesses, nonprofits, academic institutions, or government agencies that want to see this mission through to join our cause as ambassadors. So please check out americashealthiestcity.com to find out more about that. But today on our program, we have Stephen Jenkins, the founder of a local clothing brand called Healthiest. Really amazing designs and style with an even bigger impact. So Stephen, thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to have this interview.
Well, I'm just excited to be part of this. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, well, we start this show out every episode with a little bit of a background on our guest, and we want to know: are you native to Richmond, or what brought you here?
I'm a transplant. I guess everybody comes back home. Born and raised in New York City. My mom was from Richmond, and early on, Richmond was not appealing. Actually, Mom said this wasn't a place she wanted to raise her children. But in the late 80s, early 90s, she came back to take care of my grandmom, and we follow where Mom is. And I've been here since 2006, and it's been nothing but moving in the right direction, and it's been really wonderful. I call Richmond home. I own a home in Churchill, and I just want to be part of making Richmond the place to be.
Yeah. Well, I lived here in 2003 for 6 months, and it was a time where people said, "Don't go north of Broad," and at the time, it was probably right, but it's definitely a different place now. Yeah. And I agree with your sentiments and experience. I haven't been here back as long, 2017, but there's been a lot of progress just in the 6 years that I've looking back.
Yeah, I think the momentum is building. I think as more people like yourself, Richmond's become not only a healthy city, but it's a place where you can really put down some roots and have a say in the direction of where we go.
But I want to, before we get into Healthiest, I want to talk a little bit about your experience because, being a transplant, being somebody that did not grow up here, you've had a different experience, and it's certainly shaped some of the decisions that you've made. So let's talk a little bit about your time in New York, what you did there, and transitioning to Virginia, a little bit about what you've been doing since you've been here.
I realize now, since I've been back here, how fortunate I was to be born in New York City in the 60s. And was afforded amazing opportunities that a lot of people who look like me were not. The amazing opportunities were great, but it really did cut me off from a part of my history that is of the South. Came back here with reluctance, and I had to be, as an adult, learn it all over again, the struggles that people have had and still have. The history here is rich. And that had a transformational impact on my life. It actually, I think it took me apart. It's probably the most difficult thing I did as an adult was to learn how and what we can do to each other. But that got to a head where it just became very uncomfortable being an American and certainly being in the South. And needed to do something about it. I needed to learn my history. I grew up in New York, went to boarding school in New England, went to college right outside of Boston, and basically lived my life in the Northeast corridor. I've traveled around, but there was a big missing piece, which was my history as an African-American man in the South. So you could say, in a sense, that I'm back in the ancestral burial ground of my ancestors, because my mother was from here, my father was from New York City, So my father never spoke about the South because it wasn't his story. He had been up north since the 30s, and my mother didn't talk about it. So I grew up with a huge void of what the struggle has been. And I guess I'm in struggle central because I'm in Richmond, Virginia. But for all of the hardship, pain, and angst of learning the lesson, I would not trade it for anything. I feel like I have it now, and I feel like I have a better awareness, and I can be part of moving it forward. Um, the call to come back to Richmond was my mom came down in the 80s, like I said, to take care of my grandmother. And she asked me if I'd relocate. And New York was after 9/11 or whatever, and I came here reluctantly. And I started hearing about reconciliation and racial, and I stumbled onto Lumpkin's jail accidentally by myself. It's sort of self-guided. I'd say accidental, but I don't believe in accidents. I was just drawn to the space, and I saw Lumpkin's jail, and I saw the burial ground, and there was just something very significant about these sites. And it led me to do a deep dive. And the deep dive is necessary. And it's a part of my story now. So I started work. I worked for VCU when I first got here. I was approached by some people about working in caring for someone or working in health. And it didn't appeal for me. I'm a college graduate. I have a degree in theology and communications. And initially, everybody I spoke to said, don't do it. My mother worked in healthcare, and everybody Black I knew said, we've done enough of caring for white people. You're better than that. But I did a deep thought. I was looking for something different. The family said money wasn't an issue. It wasn't about money. It's about meaning and purpose and what you're doing. But I stepped across that door, and it transformed my life. My ignorance served me very well because not knowing the history here, I did not know where people belonged. And I was raised that I belonged anywhere I went, and I could say anything I want, and that's been true of who I am. I was 7 years old when my grandmother, we came down here to visit grandma, and within an hour or two, my grandmother called my mother aside and looked at her and said, he cannot stay here. It's not safe for him. And as a child, I'm trying to figure out what is she talking about. And she looks at my mother and she said, you've taught him to speak his mind. And my mother says, of course I have. And she says, that's not going to bode well from here. It took me years to really understand what that meant, but my grandmother loved me and cared for me. My mother's 90 today at this time. And when I visit with her, she'll say to me, she looks at me with a marvel and she says, I could not have raised you here. But I don't think I would be the man I am and completed the cycle had I not come back here. My caring, I've been very fortunate to do end-of-life care for a couple of really notable people. I've always treated people the same. I really don't care how many zeros are in your bank account. I care really how you treat people. And if I want to know about you, I'm going to ask your pets, your dog, and your wife, your children. Those are the people that matter. It's how you treat the people who can do nothing for you that really matters. That's where it comes from. But these were some very notable people in Richmond, and I did not know that. I treat everybody the same, but it placed me prominently here in Richmond. I was fortunate to work for the Claibornes, Rick Sharp, who did CarMax in Circuit City, just an amazing man, and learned so much from these guys. I would behoove me to say that as a Black man, I grew up without a dad in the house. And I think being Black was a piece of cake. Being poor was a piece of cake. Not having a father or someone to sort of guide and lead you into manhood was just really difficult for me. So along with learning my history, my caring for these men, they were like dads to me. They were like fathers to me. And I think in the last 18 years, they've helped me come into manhood. At the same time, it prominently set me in Richmond. So I know everybody thinks they know Stephen Jenkins.
Yeah. Well,
the closed owner.
Well, I mean, I think that this is interesting from my perspective because you not only have had this profound experience moving to a place that was, unlike where you grew up, or having the power. I mean, I've met a lot of people from New York that come here and can do and say things that people who are from here cannot do. It doesn't matter what the race is, because polite society kind of demands that we behave a certain way. And when you have a Southern draw in your accent, you have to behave a certain way. So But I'm interested in this time that you spend at a very profound point in other people's lives, where you get to see them explore their regrets and celebrate their life wins and all the emotions that go along with that. Everybody in the family. That must be, you study morbidity, you study life, and that must have a profound impact.
Well, thank you all for mentioning that. I think I've learned, there's a book called Lessons Before Dying, and I think your death can be a tremendous gift to the people around you in your circle. I mean, the definite is that we're all going to die. The question is whether or not we're all going to live. And I think I grew up having death in front of me, and death was a fear that I stayed away from. But in recent years, and from talking and caring with these people that I've cared for, death has moved behind me. And I know that I'm going to die. The question is, am I going to live, and what kind of life am I going to live? So when you talk to people who've made $500 million, when you talk to people who have made it to the top of the food chain, so to say, and have everything, and they share with you that either it wasn't worth it, or it went too fast, or they wish they had taken time to smell the roses and play with their children, you realize that there has to be something more. And you can have a good death, or you can have some people die, gripping and holding on to, we take nothing with us. And then other people realize that it's the love. I remember Demi Moore and Ghost. I'm dating myself.
How many times have I seen that movie?
But when she says at the end, the love goes with you. And I think that's the really only thing that we can take with us is the love. And these men were amazing in sharing their stories to me. Nobody's arrogant. No one feels like I did it. They feel like they were blessed. They let go of it really. Like my goal with my charges and the people I deal with is to help you to know that your identity isn't what you do. Mm-hmm. Your identity is who you are. What you do is the privilege. I think you get the gift and you give the gift away. So you release yourself from the stuff and the clinging of it. It profoundly changed me.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. Today, we are talking to Stephen Jenkins, the founder of local clothing brand Healthiest, and we're talking about his background and his transition here to Richmond. I want to move into Healthiest, the brand, and then we'll close the episode talking a little bit more about the Richmond community. But so you have this profound experience moving to Richmond. You have this introduction, to your ancestral roots.
Yeah.
And then you spend time with people who are at the end of their life for the better part of 2 decades, and then you decide one day that you're going to go fly to Africa and check it out. So tell us a little bit about this trip that you took.
I think you don't. It's interesting. I think you don't decide. I think it decides you. And if you're listening and if you're in touch with yourself, you follow it. I often feel like I'm being led. I think the early work with caring for people really set me in a position for the next part of Grace's. I needed to find grace. I needed to find grace for myself, and I needed to find grace for the people I lived around, because what I learned here was just very troubling. My last caring position before I moved in and ventured into this, I was working for the Luck family, and that's a big Richmond name. And I walked away. I was making 6 figures. I had everything I think a little black boy wants. I had a German car and more clothes. I'm single. I have a fuzzy dog, and I had all the stuff, and I was miserable. My work was meaningful, but I felt like there was something more. And if I was going to say anything to anybody, don't be afraid to follow those urges. You can always go back. Going forward is very hard. So I made the tough decision that I was going to resign from my position, which didn't go over very well with the people who they offered me more money, but some things are more important than money. And I knew that if I did not walk away, that I was going to settle. And I run into a lot of people who settle and they have stuff, but they're miserable. What I was looking for, I had heard the story of the South from this side, but I needed to go back. The story doesn't start at the James River. The story starts in Africa. And in 2019, I got the opportunity to go to Niger, West Africa. I didn't know where Niger, West Africa went. I knew it was on the continent of Africa. And I guess I come from Africa. At least that's what people say. Life does. And I said yes to go to this Muslim country in the middle of the Sahara Desert to just go and experience it. Little did I know that God had something in store for me. The moment the plane touched down, the sights, the smells, the sounds were very familiar to me on a very deep level. And tears just came to my eyes. And for the week that I was there, I could not stop crying. And I looked in the faces of these children and I saw my life apart from the horrible slave trade. I'd still stuck in that country. Poverty is extreme. Life is just really hard there, but the whole continent in certain places. And what I got was gratitude, and I needed gratitude to move on. I got a gratefulness. It does not make the 400 years of experience that we've had here right. It's evil. But for me, it has turned out in a good way, and I can either be angry today or I can play it forward. I told somebody last night, I said, if you ever see a turtle on a fence post, you know one thing. He didn't get there by himself. And neither did I, and neither did we. There were people who came before us and people who have to come after us. So my ancestors who suffered and whatever, they bought this ticket for me that I have today. But while I was in Africa and so moved, I got the opportunity to go back, and I spent the 6 months. I've been back 8 or 9 or 10 times. I try to go at least twice a year now. But I was so profoundly moved by the people and their dedication, and I wanted a way to help them and support them without creating a welfare system. I think when you give people something for free, you take away a dignity. Work is good. And I started the clothing company to employ them. I love clothes. I've always loved fashion. I grew up in New York City. I modeled. I worked at Bergdorf Goodman's. I love clothes, and I just love what clothes represent. But I said, let's do something together. And the idea of Graces was launched. Grace, because that's what I received, and that's what I'd like to give. So Graces is two things. Graces is the clothes, but Graces is a movement. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to build a movement of people around grace. I want people to be grace. And what I term gracism is that you believe the best about people, that you understand the grace that we've all received and you extend it to evil. I think we live in a society right now where we expect the worst from people. And I want to turn that around. I want to be part of turning that around. So with my collaborators in Niger, who are like family, they are my family, we are trying to create these amazing clothing and tell stories and get people to conversate and get to know each other and look good at the same time.
So I want to, before we talk about the impact here, I want to talk about the impact there because two questions maybe. So first off, you say, I want to help these people, so I'm going to make clothes. Did you know at that moment that taking these goods from Africa to America was going to have a profound impact on Americans? Okay, so and then another thing I want to talk about is knowing that you've sold these clothes, and knowing that people have worn them, you filmed them, you've taken this back to Africa. Yeah. You've exposed your partners in this venture to this. Tell me a little bit about that joy and dignity and respect that they feel when they get to experience that. How is that? Was that a surprise to you?
Yeah, I'm still in a place of being the wow. You never lose the wonder. And I love that I'm surprised. And when I decided to do this, I had no idea that anyone other than myself would enjoy these clothing. And quite frankly, they could sit in my basement. But if I could pay these people and employ these people and they were making stuff, success for me wasn't that the clothes sold. The success was that they were able to support themselves and do something meaningful. The big thing has been when I got back here and realized how people responded to them, and people have understood what it was I was trying to do. But then there was that gap, which you're talking about right now. I wanted to share the joy with them because I'm not doing this alone. So when I send them craft and design, when I send them people people who don't look like them, picking up their garments or whatever, they're the smiles and the joy that come to their faith. El Haj is one of my collaborators. He works on the denim, and El Haj told me his village, he's Fulani. He's a Picasso. He's a black Picasso. This guy can work in anything, and he can see in 3 dimensions or whatever. But because I want to share meals, I go back to eat with them. I bring food. This is not just a transactional thing. This is a relationship These are people that I love and care about. And he says, my village sends you thanks for the work, because he's not just working for himself. His funds go to his village.
Yeah.
These people are employing. My other sewer, El Haj, he's deaf. And I talk with him through an interpreter. And the first time I went to his home to meet him, 7 kids come running out of the house, and 5 of them are deaf because it's genetic. So you have these joyful, wonderful kids in the dirt and no sound coming out of them. And at that point I said, I'm going to do whatever I can do so that you can feed these kids and put them through school. So as a single 1% in America, I needed something. I need a reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
It's bigger than me, because there's a lot of malevolence and stuff out of here. Ideally, I would love to bring them all with me here. And maybe when we get the fashion award, or when I get the big award, I'll fly them all in. When I did craft and design, it was very important to me that they were represented. And that's why I have a big poster, and I have them there, because they inspire me on a level that I need to be inspired. Else we can just get real comfortable here. I need to be shaken out of my comfortability. I mean, I'm been blessed tremendously. So yes, and videos, and I see them, and I see the joy in their faces. So not only is this economically lifting them, but it's letting them know that their talent is being appreciated.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1. Please check out americashealthiestcity.com to follow our work. Today we have Stephen Jenkins, the founder of clothing brand Greatest, and we were talking about how we have brought something from Africa to Richmond to have an impact, and really how you've done that. So let's talk about impact. So let's talk about the clothes first.
Yeah,
and I had the opportunity to wear a pair of jeans with this print on it at an event. And I will tell you that I had so many people come up to me. I wanted to take pictures. I wanted to really celebrate and have something to show you from this event. But so many people came up to me that I did not get a chance. Before I would even think about taking a photo, somebody else would come up to me. So I've experienced the impact of wearing these clothing. For those who are listening, they're not going to get to see this, but this is a patchwork of a very vibrant colors and patterns, and these are fabrics that you've sourced from Africa that have been stitched together by your seamstresses and artists and seamstresses. Why is this resonating here in Richmond, and what's it doing for folks?
I also think color is universal. I just think color is just beautiful, and these colors make you happy. The denim pieces in particular, first of all, the fabrics is this amazing, vibrant, and you'll go to Africa and you'll see one family of 25 with one fabric on. So people will buy bolts of fabric and have a wedding, and everybody interprets it in their own way. So it's just this melange of color. And where we tend to be subdued, they tend to celebrate color. But in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of discussion about racial appropriation and things like that. And people have been afraid to sort of wear sort of stuff. And I understand that a lot of one can be seen as that. My idea was, let's take it and blend it all together, so it's not a racial misappropriation, but it's a celebration of diversity. And that's what it represents to me. And in some amazing way, it should not work. I mean, it's just too much color. It should not work. But if you, but it does. At some point, it's like a fractal. There's an amazing pattern to this. I go to Africa and I source the fabrics, and each season we'll do a different collection. And so the fabrics will change. This is a blazer that's just put together with all of these different fabrics on it. The tagline for the company is an invitation to a conversation, Graces. An invitation to conversation, because at the core of it, the DNA was that I wanted to help people connect and get back together. So I thank you, Will, because when you talk about people wanting to take pictures of you, anybody who's ever worn the clothes from the East Coast to the West Coast to the South Coast says that and I beta tested it with black, white, different people, they say people approach me. Like if I wear this, it almost is an invitation that people engage you, and whether it's a thumbs up or whether it's where did you get that, or whether that's, I want to put something good back into the DNA. So what I could not engineer was that the reaction that you're experiencing. That was totally out of me. I'm not that kind of genius. I thought that it altogether, I grew up with Benetton, United Colors of Benetton. loved Benetton, and I think these are the united colors of graces. So, strengthen, I think the strength of anything happens at the ground level. The oldest living things on the planet, we say, are the redwoods out in California. It's massive. These things have been there for, they think that 3,000 to 5,000 years or whatever. And the miracle of how these things withstand the storms of life, which we all confront, is that underneath the surface, the roots hold each other up. And I think that's a beautiful picture of our society, that the strength of us is not what's above and you see, it's our connectedness. And I look, these clothes got me here on your amazing show.
Well, let's talk about Richmond, because that's what it's about. You've learned through this work that you can have an impact. You've seen the profound nature of the response that people have, both wearing it and the folks who see them wearing it. I've experienced it. I know it's true. You've unlocked something. The timing was right. Yeah. You got the formula right. What's the future look like? How do you take this brand into the future? Does it stay in Richmond? Does it go beyond?
No. I want to start a movement. I tell people a gang is just a bunch of people doing for one cause. So you could be a gang for good or you could be a gang for bad. And I'd want to be a gang for good. I would love to see Graces, not only our country, but just even further. I'd love for it to, we come together and extend grace and receive grace. The clothing line, we're building it because every piece is a handmade piece, and it's a handmade piece. There's only so far we can scale up. Yeah. But the Graces brand, we have t-shirts, we have hoodies, we have sweatshirts. There's a lot of ways that you can support us, but the clothes in particular, we're going to do some more of them. I would like to get more elaborate in what we do. The denim pieces really resonate. I see denim as the fabric of America. I would probably say denim and khaki. So what I love is to take the landscape of the denim and reinterpret it with the African fabrics. And that seems to be resonating across racial lines. And whether you are, everybody loves color. I've talked to Indian people. Indian people love this stuff because they love a lot of bling. And I've talked to people from South America, and the colors just resonate. And I come from an African American family. My mother's hair is orange, although my sisters are blonde. So Black people aren't afraid of a little color. Yeah. And I'd like to see it spread across, along with the stories. The stories and the colors. Someone said it's really hard to hate people up close. And when people get close to you, the most reaffirming words in the English language, I think, are me too.
Yeah.
And I'm riding this out. I can strategically think what I want to happen, but there is a huge part that just, you let it loose. The genie's out of the bottle, and where do we go with this? I would love to I have a documentary coming out about the people by an Emmy-winning documentarian who just happens to be a good friend of mine. And I think that's going to propel this more. I'm going to be on Good Morning RVA in February. So I'm going to sit on the television and discuss this. And anywhere that I can promote the clothes, talk about grace, and share my story, you send me an invitation. I'd love to come and talk about grace and show you these wonderful clothes, and maybe we can get you a piece of it.
Well, so one of the things that we ask everybody who comes on the show is to share, maybe one idea that we can add to our ideas board, small ways, big ways that people can make a difference in making us a healthier community. Perhaps suggest somebody who we should interview in the future, and please tell folks where they can find you.
Well, for someone, I may have been here for 18 years, but for someone, you've made a tremendous impact in the time you've been here. You and your wife and what you're doing, I really do. I think this makes a tremendous impact. The plastic bottles that are saved, water is something we all need. We can't live without. Art, I think this is a representation. I mean, I can't wear this, but I can drink this. These bottles are amazing. And I think that if more people out there, whatever your idea is, your concept, and nothing, it's a dream. And quite frankly, if everybody says you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. Dreams are bigger than you. But when you own and lean into what you want to do, I'll tell you that your people will come out the woodwork, and your people do exist. The support you need at that time will come. Never give up. Never give hope, and dream big. Dream big. If you can do it in yourself, then by yourself. then someone once said to me, they said, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
I like that. That's great advice.
And I'm grateful to have you and Courtney and other people in my life, because I'm inspired by the talent and the ability and the bigness of what you're a very generous man, generous of heart, and I celebrate you.
Well, I hang out with like kind, so you're here for a reason. Tell folks where they can find Graces.
Graces. So you can find me on Instagram at Graces7. The website is gracesbrand.com. I'm getting all. And my email is graces.rva@gmail.com. Please, I look forward to it. And if you see me in the street, or if you see someone, do me a favor. You see someone wearing a piece of this, you go up and start a conversation with them. And I guarantee you the grace will overflow.
Stephen, thank you so much for joining me today.
I can't thank you enough for having me on. Well, I wish you all the great success in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you, my friend.
This was America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1. Catch us every Thursday at 6 a.m. here on the station, part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. We'll catch you next week.